What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another great edition of No Love Philly, the podcast dedicated to artists, activists, musicians, comedians, breweries, basically anybody in and around the city of Philadelphia who makes this place as awesome as it is. Dude, today we caught up with my buddy. He's a solid dude, man. Daniel Drago from 25 O'Clock Podcast. It's a podcast that's similar to No Love Philly. It covers a whole bunch of artists in town. A lot of connections. He knows a lot of people. He has an awesome setup in his basement. It's just cool to sit down and meet somebody who kind of goes through the same things that you go through, booking guests, just kind of figuring out what drives him and what got him into it. All around cool dude, man. I really cannot wait to be able to sit down and have a beer with him. We've had some of the same guests on our show. He talks about being a part of a band and being on tour. He talks about what got him into doing podcasting. He talks about a little bit about the process of it. He's a great resource for any of the bands here in Philly or around Philly or coming into Philly or anything like that. And I think he wants to branch out into some other stuff as well. He understands what it's like to do this, and that it's not as easy as it seems. But he's a great resource. I really recommend bands if you're wanting to get some coverage, you're wanting to get some press, hit him up. I'm sure we talk about this a little bit, but it's just kind of like we try to get as many as we can. It can be difficult, but I'm sure he's always up to cover somebody. Solid dude, man. Really cool guy. 25 O'Clock, it's his podcast. He had me on his show not too long ago, and that was awesome. So yeah, man, I hope we get to do. Oh, we also talk about like doing live podcasts and stuff like that, and what that process was like for him. And but yeah, dude, it was an awesome interview, and I'm really thankful that he's let me come to his home twice now to speak with him. And like I said, I can't wait to have a beer with the guy eventually. He still does open mics, like. He's still rocking it out. He does his own thing, man, and I love that. I love so much that he knows what he wants to do. It's very nonchalant. There is no pressure, and I love it, man. Just a super awesome dude. Thankful I got to speak with him, and I'm not going to bore you anymore with this intro. You guys want a show list? How about I give you a show list? We got Dying Fetus going down the Saturday after Thanksgiving. That's November 25th at the Theater of Living Arts. They're on tour with Hatebreed, Twitching Tongues, and Code Orange. Their new album, Wrong One to Fuck With, is out now. Did you know those dudes are from Maryland? They're from fucking Maryland. So I think this is going to be a great show. This is going to be awesome. They're already they're 180 of 200 Billboard charts. They're number 2 on Heat Seekers charts. They're number 2 in hard music. They're killing it, man. But they're gonna be here in Philly. You make sure you check that out. Make sure you like their Facebook, Instagram, and stuff like that. On the local side of things, we've got several events going on. If I go from the top here. Let's see what we have. You've got the Philly Zine Fest going down. Oh, that already happened. My bad. That one's probably already going to be done. That one's out. Let's look into December. What does December hold for us? I know that in January 19th, you have Curtis Cooper, the record release party going down at Johnny Brenda's. That should be pretty dope. December 2nd, you've got Ringtail Howitzer, Well Room, Flaming Something Saturday, 8 p.m. at Dwayne's World. You've got Philly Gets Alternative on December 2nd, and that's going down at Everybody Hits Philadelphia. Let's see what else we've got, man. There's a lot of great shows coming through. Mistletoe Jam 2017 at World Cafe Live, taking place December 28th. You've got December 30th, Pray to Keep American Lions going down at the Barbary. You've got Darla at World Cafe Live Sunday, December 31st. You got the Blade Runner Dance Party going down at the Barbary. And yeah, man. Did I say what the date was for that? Yeah, January 4th, Blade Runner Dance Party going down at the Barbary. So if you want to get dancey, get it poppin', make it happen, go there. January 19th, Nate Standing Forward Real Magic Tour. Ooh, I'm curious about that. Going down at Philamoka Friday at 8 p.m. I think that's enough show stuff for you guys. I think you guys get it. You guys get the point. So without any further ado, here's my buddy, Dan Drago from 25 O'Clock Podcast. And make sure to like his Facebook, Instagram, and make sure to check out his podcast. And here we go.
Do you want me to pop into 2? Is there?
And we're in. No, man, you don't. I just
I'm not
wear
gonna do
these-
anything then.
Right on. Yeah. So you got it perfect. You know the mic that's going to look at you all fancy with the pop filter.
I won't remember to like move it to the side.
Oh,
So
I
is that
never-
right?
Yeah, man. I mean,
Cool.
you're already doing more than I ever do. So I'm here with the famous Daniel. I don't know. I always mispronounce your name or think I go Drago.
You're absolutely right the second time.
Drago.
But the first time, as you can't decide on how to do that A, is what usually people do. They go between like an ah and an ah, and you're like which is also a very like Philly way to say stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, or everyone goes Drago because they think Rocky IV.
Okay, cool.
Because again,
Philly.
Philadelphia. If he dies, he dies.
This dude does the 25 o'clock podcast, very similar to mine. We both like to interview folks. Right now, I'm in South Philly in this dope ass man cave / studio /
Please don't call it a man cave.
1,
That
2,
sounds
3,
weird.
4, 5, 6, 7 motherfucking guitars.
One more upstairs. Too.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pedals. A whole bunch of amps. And I'm not giving you the address because I don't want anybody creepy coming around here being like, he's got all this dope shit. Yeah, man. So what's up, dude?
Oh, you're in the lair, the basement, the basement
Drago
studio.
layer.
It is what it is. Like I said when we had talked, this is the accumulation of most of my life of stuff, and then I finally had a place to put it.
Nice, man. So, dude, how did you get started? What made you decide to start your podcast?
Oh, podcasting. I just answered this question on a group that I'm in. In 2013, I was in a touring band for the longest time. We were called The Way Home, toured all over the Northeast and stuff like that. Entertained ideas of maybe being able to sustain. The problem was that we were probably about 8 to 10 years too late on the idea of being able to sustain yourself more easily as touring musicians. I split from the band in 2013. I was just done. I was done being on the road. I was done sort of when you are in a band. This is the long roundabout way to answer your question. When you're in a band, especially when you're trying to make it happen, you'll kind of upend a lot of other aspects of your life to serve the purpose of being in a successful band. One of those is like you might take a certain kind of job that offers you more flexibility, that may not pay as much, or may not be as prestigious or whatever you consider a job, to serve the greater project being the band. But around the time I was like 33, I was just like, I'm done with this. Like, this is clearly not happening for our fault or not our fault. It's just not happening. So I walked and was kind of aimless for the next couple of years. I didn't really know what to do with all this free time that I had now, because up to that point, like most of my life, like out of college and all that, was spent either, it was like my relationship with my fiance, who then became my wife, work, band. It was like in that order. And once band went away, I was just like, well, what do I do now? I produced some records for some people for a little bit, traveled around, did that, helped my brother build a studio, and then I listened to a lot of podcasts, so people kept saying like, oh, you should do a podcast. And I just like, I don't know how to do that. But I have radio background and stuff like that. So someone planted the idea in my head, and I just kind of mulled it over for the better part of a year and a half, and then kind of said, all right, I think I'm ready to do it. And then I just started doing it. Yeah, that's a really roundabout answer where I could have just told you.
So going back to the band, you said it wasn't happening. I mean, it seems like it was something that you were pursuing full time, kind of in a way.
We're
right?
trying, yeah.
And so what wasn't happening? Where's the band right now? Let me ask that. Are they still doing their thing?
No. Shortly I left also because it seemed like the rest of the band wanted to push even harder, and I'd reached a point where I didn't want to push that. I didn't want to push to that level anymore. So I tried to do the responsible thing, which was step aside. I was like, I don't want to hold you guys back because I'm going to say no to half the stuff that you guys want to do, and that's not fair to 3 other people in a band. So I stepped aside, and within 4 months, the whole thing had fucking fallen apart. Can I say fuck?
Oh, fuck
Cool,
yeah.
I did.
Wow, man. So
And that was no one's fault either. Like it wasn't like I was holding. I don't want to come off and be like I was holding it up, and when I left, like it all fell apart.
Yeah,
that
I
wasn't
don't
true.
think it was. I mean, I think what happened is that the reality hit one person, and then
I think I was just the first rat to flee the sinking ship.
right, right. And so what was life like on the road? I mean, were you selling you and I talked, and you're like, no, I'm not in the t-shirt game. I'm not in that.
That's right.
You know, so
I was in the record game. I was in the record and playing live game.
right. And so like, what was that life like? Were you getting paid for gigs? Were you doing good tours? Were you with large bands? What was it?
Sometimes we cultivated a lot of relationships just through people that we knew and friends of friends, and the internet is a great resource for a touring band if used correctly. You can really network with people, but you still have to have the real face-to-face human relationships with people in order to get anything done. I guess to answer that question, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Like sometimes it worked out well. We'd go out on runs. We'd end up coming back with a little bit of cash, which we would then funnel, directly back into the band. The first goal before even trying to like sustain our own lives as musicians was, can we sustain the project? Can the project be self-sustaining, not really relying on too much of our own individual income to feed the band? Can we get the band to the point where it feeds itself? And we were getting close to that. There were times when it hit better than others. It's you can do, I mean, the music industry, just the touring life, you can do everything right. You can do everything you're supposed to do and still fail miserably. Like you can be a great band. Like you could write the best songs. People could love your music. But if that combination of logistics, right place, right time, and just honestly, God, just serendipity, if those things aren't happening, then it's just bang your head against that wall. It ain't ever going to happen.
I always wonder what is better for bands, like to sign to a record label, right? Or to find yourself like a really good manager. Like, you know what I mean? Somebody that really can make that happen.
I think that second thing is probably more helpful to bands at most levels. 'Cause labels don't really have much more money than bands do anymore. Although the cost of production has gone down and the means of production have kind of changed, you can do so much more digitally than you were able to do 10 or 15 years ago. But in the end, all a label can offer you is, for the most part, is some marketing help, some promo help, and the means of distribution. They have the connections to, get records out to stores. They have the connections to not even so much get stuff on iTunes or Spotify anymore, because you can do that through a digital account, through like a Bandcamp account, or to tell you, it's probably changed so much since I was doing it. We used to do it through, God, I can't remember the name of the site, but if you paid, set up an account, it would populate all the major digital outlets. This is back when is Rhapsody still a thing? It makes me sound old to ask that. But it would populate like Rhapsody, Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. It would do it for you. You paid money for it. God, I can't remember the name of the service, but I paid the invoice for that yearly. And if the amount of sales that you netted through iTunes plays or Spotify plays or whatever over the course of the year exceeded the amount that it cost a year, they would just kind of take it out of that. And so, again, speaking of keeping the project sort of sustaining itself and feeding itself, if you could get yourself into a good groove right there, you would truly never have to pay that bill because you were always generating a little bit of income from digital sales. But getting back to what you said about, I think the manager, I think getting someone outside of the band who they have to love the band as much as everyone in the band does, maybe even a little more, because they get to spearhead a lot of the heavy lifting, the logistics, the talking to people, the reaching out to 100 different people and getting told no 99 times. they have to reach out and they have to be the face of that aspect of the band. And on top of that, they don't get the fun of actually being in the band.
Right.
They don't get to go up and play every night. They're the ones, you know, dealing with the club promoters, worrying about getting posters, worrying about the draw, worrying about the drive. They are a fifth member of the band, or a sixth. They are the next member of the band. I don't know why bands are always four members in my head. There are bands of, you have many different numbers of people in bands, but a manager, I think, is key. Someone who is on board as much as you are. Do you know Marley McNamara?
Do not.
She manages the band The Districts. She found them. She was at a show that they were playing, one of their early shows, and they were like 17. That was probably 8 or 9 years ago that she found them. They're selling out Union Transfer for hometown shows. They got signed to Fat Possum Records. They're on billboards in London. But she just saw them at the right time.
From Philly.
They're from just outside Philly. They're from like Schwenksville or something like that. I'm getting that wrong. So if Marley listens to this, Marls, I'm sorry that I didn't pay attention when you told me where the band was from. But they're from just outside the area, and they worked their asses off for 7 or 8 years. And Marley worked her ass off to get them there, too. That's what that was. There was no secret there. She didn't come in with like a magical formula to, you know, I'm going to take you kids to the top. She just said, hey, if you guys want to be doing this when you get older, let's start laying the groundwork now. And I think that's so important to bands, to have someone that they can work with who says, let's start laying the groundwork now.
So is that the only band that she manages? Or
no, she manages the Dove and the Wolf, who are Philly residents by way of Paris. They're two Parisian girls with a band which I think is Philly people. They're a phenomenal band. And I had them on my show. They were great to talk to. She manages a group called the Levy Drivers. My friend August fronts that band. They're a great band too, kind of a country folk band. Those are the top three. She has Pine Barrens. She manages a band called Pine Barrens, who are also have records. I think they're signed to. And again, these are all groups that she loves. She loves these bands. She didn't pick any one band or the other based on like, oh, I think this band could really do it for me. But, you know, like she didn't pick the Districts knowing that, you know, 9 years later, the Districts would open for the Rolling Stones in Quebec, and
Wow.
she would get to go.
Wow.
Yeah. This interview is becoming all about me talking about Marley now. But she's an awesome cat, and I'm inspired by her and awed by her at times.
So I think one of the cool things about, you know, doing the podcast is that you get to meet so many of these different people who have all these awesome stories. Because I think I told you I'm a fan of stories. God,
Oh, yeah.
I love stories. You know. And I think that one of the great things about doing the podcast is you get to meet so many different cool people, man. Like right now, I mean, I'm stoked that like you know, the dudes from Trash Boy that do the Slime Time House, they just released their album, and so I'm stoked about like that. You know, just different people. One of the people that you and I have both crossed over with and that we've talked about is Brian Walker, right?
Awesome dude.
Yeah. So I know that when we were talking, you guys were talking about doing kind of like a "fuck that's delicious" kind of thing. So I want to know, did anything come of that?
No, we haven't pursued. I haven't pursued it more with him.
Why?
His life, man. He's a busy dude though. Like he's always hustling. And as much as I'd love to be in on a project with him, I also don't want like whatever weird sort of one-off project that he and I might get involved in. I don't want it to get in the way of what he's doing. But he would be the first person to know that, and he would be the first person to pull the plug if he decided that it was getting in the way of his bigger thing. So I don't know why.
Wow.
I should. This is the kick in the ass right here.
Because you're a chef, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
by profession, yes.
Yeah, that's what you do. It's odd to me that you're here in the evenings too. That always trips me out. That, like,
well, I'm off today, so that's part of it. But I'm an AM guy. I worked corporate dining for so long, and corporate dining tends to be more on the AM side of things because that's when most people are at work. I got used to that, and I actually prefer going in early. Like
How
I'll go,
early? I mean, we're talking
if I'm in my particular job right now, if I'm opening like a station or something like that, or I'm one of the first guys in, I'm in 5:30 in the morning,
about? Holy crap.
which means I'm getting up at 4. But I'm done. If I time it right, I'm done by 1:30, 2 o'clock, which is nice.
Wow, man.
I get home, I crash for a half hour, take a little power nap, and then I'm up. I got the whole rest of my day to, either get, actual adult stuff done or come down here and play one of these 7 guitars.
Right.
Or work on the show or, book guests, send emails. Just figure out how to keep that train rolling right there.
So what do you? I mean, you obviously started the podcast because you had the time to do it.
Yeah.
But what do you think your original goals were when you were doing the podcast? I mean, what did you envision? What did you want out of it?
I think my first goal, aside from just putting the thing out, was to consistently be able to put the thing out. And that's
that son of a bitch.
I know, right? It's it's to be able to keep putting it out. Because, and I'm sure I've said this to you before when we've talked. I know a lot of guys who had some really great ideas for podcasts, and they put out 1, 2, 3 episodes, and then the bottom falls out. Like they can't sustain. People think it's going to be a lot easier than it is, but it's not. It was just not to say it's like arduously difficult, but like you got to put the time in. You got to put the time into making contacts if you don't already have the contacts already. I was lucky when I started because I toured for so long that I had a pretty good Rolodex in the back of my head. When I first sat down to do the show, I listed out, it's probably, if I had the notebook down here, I'd open it up and show you, 15, 20 people just off the top of my head, mostly friends or like close friend of friend acquaintances. I don't think there was a single person on that list that I hadn't talked to in real life at one point or another. And I wrote it down. Most of those people were in Philly. A couple weren't, but I knew that they were coming through or what have you. And I said, like, all right, let's just start. Let's start emailing people. And most people are happy to talk. Like, you think like, oh, this person won't be on my show. Chances are they'll be on your show.
Yeah, dude.
If they have something to promote, or if they just, you think sometimes people think that other artists or other people are more successful or don't have the time for you, but and if it is, and if that is the case, then that's the case.
Move on, right?
Yeah.
So like, dude, I got lucky. I just interviewed Anti-Flag, so I thought that was
holy shit, that's great.
Yeah, dude.
My
so,
God,
I
I
mean,
listened to them in the late 90s.
You never know who's gonna say yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, dude. You know who else? We started talking about this originally when we were in your cast, and I felt ashamed of myself that I didn't delve deeper into it. And you were saying, what was the reason? I want to interview, like I said, Chef Millie is one. Vinny Paz is another one.
Chef Millie, like the
from Hell's Kitchen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So chef. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So I wanted to interview him. I wanted to interview Vinny Paz. I wanted to interview the Sons of Ben. That's the soccer, I guess, team. Oh, not team. They're like, I don't want to call them cheerleaders for the team, but like they basically go and tailgate all the soccer games.
Oh, cool.
And get fucking rowdy. And they have this awesome theme song that's we're from Philly, nobody likes us, and we don't care. So
that is a good. That's an accurate.
I want to interview
song.
Benny Siegel. I want to interview like Freeway. I want to interview. Basically, there's so what attracts me is big time about what I love about Philly is that there's so many fucking legendary artists here that still live here, dude. That like they're not like. They don't just like make it and then split. And, I'm living in LA, living that. No, they're from Philly and they stay here. They live here. They fucking dig out their cars in the winter. You know what I mean? Like they go through that rough shit.
In that vein, I want to talk to like, and I should reach out because I have a connection to it. I'd love to talk to like Marshall Allen. Marshall Allen played in Sun Ra Orchestra, which is like a well-known like psychedelic avant free jazz, not free improv, but free jazz type of group that spanned from like the 60s up until when Sun Ra himself died, I think maybe 8 years ago, 7 years ago or something like that. And Sun Ra was a Philly guy too. And some of those guys who played with Sun Ra play in West Philly Orchestra, which is like a sort of a Balkan-style street orchestra that's been around the city for a long time. and has always been part of the scene. They'll sell out underground arts. They'll open for interesting funk or horn bands at Ardmore Music Hall or something like that. And those guys they all live here. They're all insanely talented, and all of them do 90 other projects in accordance with that. They all have the hustle.
So how do you see do you see your podcast evolving, and if so, how do you see it doing so?
I mean, I think it did evolve in the first year. I didn't know what I wanted the focus to be other than music, but I talked to a couple theater people. I was just kind of bringing in anybody, but it just kept going back to musicians because that was the crew I could go in with credibility very easily.
Right.
Like, I would have a hard time, not a hard time, but I would have to do a lot more legwork to break into, the visual arts community, like painters or even media arts or something like that. I would have to really figure that one out. But as musicians, I'm just like, well, I could keep plenty busy. Right. Just on people who play. So somewhere after the first year, I stopped. I didn't narrow, but I just said, like, we're going to keep this as Philly-based as I can. Now, what I define Philly-based to be at any given time is completely up to me. It can be a musician coming through Philly. It can be someone who used to live here that doesn't live here anymore. It could be someone who just got here and is from a different part of the country or a different part of the world. The girls in The Dove and the Wolf had really only been in the city for a year and a half or two at that point, but they're Philly to me, and they call here home. So that to me is
close enough, right?
Not even close enough. That counts.
Yeah, that
counts. Yeah.
I think I always have this internal struggle with myself because I moved first to 45th and Woodland and then to Manayunk, but now I live in the burbs. But my podcast is called No Love Philly. So I always have that difficulty with myself, like, what do I do here? Like, what, and I don't even try to justify it. I just say, fuck it. It's my money. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Who's going to tell me shit,
Yeah. That's the joy of podcasting. Whatever you define the scope of the thing that you're doing,
right.
That's what you're doing. And the joy about having your own podcast is at any point that you want to deviate from that or try something different or broaden the scope or narrow the scope, it is entirely up to you. Like, that was the thing that I loved about – it's a thing that I took to immediately about having my own podcast, which was just like, this is my ship. And I am the sole guiding force of this ship. In a band, in order to have a good, happy band, everyone needs to feel like their input is equally being used. And you do the best that you can amongst different personalities, egos, and just people. Just getting schedules together.
Yeah, and with the band, there's 4 other people.
There are 4 people, 5 people.
And then here, I am God.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, to put it that way, it's like this is my call.
Right.
And if I stumble across something that's awesome, then like, holy shit, I did it. And if I fuck something up, then I'm like, well, I fucked it up. Like, that's me. I can't blame anyone else. Like, even if I bring in a guest and the interview doesn't go well,
does that ever happen for you?
That has thankfully not happened for me.
I would say it hasn't happened to me once.
Nothing's been a train wreck. There are interviews that have gone better than others. There are interviews that have been kind of weird. But
we won't name names.
Well, no, but you know this too, just from having interviewed and talked to so many different people. You can get in it, and you can steer it.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Sorry,
that's okay.
I am so.
You're a highly in demand dude.
My life right now is that I just got a promotion at my day job. I don't know if you call it a promotion. I don't know. They
gave you more shit to do.
They gave me more shit. They
patted you on the head and told you how great it was.
And they gave me more money. But the thing is with that I am constantly, like, as soon as I hear that, it's a trained mechanism.
It's
like
a Pavlovian response.
There you go, Pavlov. If I was a trained dog, and that's basically my whistle, I'm like, all right,
I'm here.
Yes.
No. When I used to work in the corporate restaurant world, the phone was constantly, because even if I wasn't there were still people asking me about stuff, and and vendors getting in touch with me about stuff, and it was just always happening. And that's something that I'm glad I got away from being as in charge in certain ways that I was before. And I was glad I was. But getting back to the thing I said right at the beginning, that was a decision I made while I was in the band.
Right.
I said, I need to be able to devote more time and attention to this thing. And one of the ways I'm going to be able to do that is to pass by certain, career opportunities. But in my mind, it didn't feel like I was missing anything, because I always thought to myself, I'm like, a job will always be there. Like, I've got enough get up and go in me that if whatever I choose to focus that on, that's the thing I'm going to excel in the most. So I never felt like anything was passing me by or that I was missing opportunities. I'm just like, no, I'm just sidestepping this one temporarily, and maybe it'll be there when I come back, or maybe it won't, but something else will probably be there.
See, that's awesome. For me, I have a complete different take on reality. For me, it's like I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I have a family.
Well,
right?
definitely, that'll definitely that'll definitely focus you in ways.
I'm always like on the edge of, well, fuck, what happens if I lose it all? You know what I mean? And
yeah,
so
because it's not just you.
But as of late, there's a dude I like listening to, Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Oh, dude, he's fucking awesome.
What's his deal?
Everything. What does he do? He does everything. He fucking
Renaissance
he
man.
hustles. That's what he does. He's a hustler, and he's helped his dad's wine business grow, and then he's got Vayner Media. He's like a motivational speaker type dude. He's always like trying to do stuff. But like, yeah, so just listening to him, what it's kind of made me want to do. I was getting to a point where I was like, fuck, man, like I'm gonna have to pick one or the other here, dude, pretty soon. Like, it's either gonna be job or this podcast, or 'cause I know me and I know my personality. And then after listening to this dude, and I was like, nah, man, fuck it. And then after getting this raise and everything, I was just like, you know what? I want it all, man.
You can plant you can do stuff. You can do stuff for your family or your life or whatever it is that you think you need to do. And then you can still do other stuff too.
Right.
Like, you just have to, and not to make this like a whole sort of like self-help thing about like managing your time and stuff like that.
Right.
But you have to decide what it is
You're willing to give
that's
up.
important to you.
Right.
No, what it is that's important to you, and the important thing to you, what you want to spend your time on. For me, for years, it was the band. I wanted to spend time playing music, working with these guys, going out playing shows, hustling. That was what I wanted to do until I didn't want to do it anymore. And so then I stopped. I didn't. And, I definitely strung it out for probably a little longer than I meant to, because I did feel obligated to these guys. You spend that much time with people. And the frontman in that band, James, been my best friend since we were 14, 15 years old. Like, there was a lot of history right there. And it was hard to leave, but it needed to happen. And then he and I became better. We were kind of having a rough time just as people, because it's hard to be in a band with your friends, especially it's hard to be in a band with your best friend. But I think that me leaving the band in the end made us, we kind of got back to like what it was. Like, oh yeah, this is why we're friends. Like, this is why we enjoy each other. And hey, we took away all that other stressful shit of being in a band. We took that all away. So now when we play together, it's because we fucking want to.
Right on.
And when we play together and write together and work together, we have so much fun, because that's like vacation. It's like creative vacation.
So with your experience in the band and doing live shows and doing that stuff, and I think I did see that though. Now that I'm asking this question, I'm looking back. Have you thought about doing some like live shows, or like either live shows that like throwing shows to benefit the podcast, or doing live podcasts at different bars or anything? Have you ever thought about doing that stuff?
I've done a few live podcasts.
What was that experience like?
Oh God.
What?
What? I love that. No, that's my older guy response to most things. Oh God. I wanted to do a live podcast because the first time I got offered to do it, I jumped on it because I was like, I've never done anything like this, and I knew other podcasts did it. Greg Proops did it, Mark Maron would do it, and I would listen to them, and I'm like, these are awesome. It sounds great. Like, and the audience is super involved, and like everything is good. I did it for Philadelphia Podcast Festival
Dude, how was that shit, dude?
So, okay.
Was it worth it?
Let me walk you through the 3 years that I did it for them. The first year, we did it at Bridgeset Sound, which is a music store on 7th and South, owned by my good friend Steve. I got him in on that community, actually, because we needed a space, and I didn't want to do the bar that they were doing it out of, the space, was full. So I said, what if we made this a little bit more festival-like and had it in a second location that's very close to the, main hub location? I didn't want to do it on the other side of town. It was 2 blocks down the street. We did that there. I did 2 weeks I did 2 shows, one week, one the next week. I had a completely different set of guests for each time. I was the only podcast going out of Bridgeset that year. It was fun. We got to completely decide how we wanted to do it. We got to try stuff. We got to make mistakes and figure out how to correct them quickly from week to week, from one week to the other too. I was so glad we did it 2 weeks in a row, because I thought the second week was like, all right, we've really dialed it in now. Like, first week was the jitters, and second week was, okay, we can do this. The next year, I ended up doing it out of Tattooed Moms in the space that they were using as the main festival. I did not enjoy that as much as I did the previous year. It has nothing to do with Tattooed Moms, has nothing to do with the people who put on the festival. Tegan and Nate are good friends, and I said yes. I said, I'll try this other thing. And the thing that you find out when you try other things, you find the things you like and you find the things you don't like.
So what didn't you like about it?
I didn't like the openness of the space. I didn't like the couch, as weird as that sounds. I didn't like slouching into a couch. In fact, I made them go get me bar stools for myself.
What a fucking diva.
I made them go get bar stools for me and my guests because, well, to me, I felt like I don't want to sit, and now I'm going to sit up straight as I say this. Yeah. I don't want to sit sagged into a couch trying to talk to someone. To me, it felt disrespectful to the artist, and I was like, no, we're going to sit up straight. We're going to look at each other, and we're going to do this like professionals. And I think I was just in a weird headspace that particular day that I did it, and I didn't feel like I did a very good job. I thought my guests were fantastic. They each performed tunes.
Wait, that's the dude that told that crazy LSD story that he was working on the boards, that he has this crazy job.
That was the third year.
Okay,
that
all
was
right.
the third
so
year.
That was a fucking awesome story,
We brought it
dude.
back to Bridgeset. I was so happy to. It was like going home. I was just like, oh, thank God. And because and Steve and I at that point, even though it had been a couple of years since we'd done it there, we were just like, oh, we know how to do this. Like, it's Steve's store. He'd owned it for almost 5 years at that point. There was nothing we couldn't figure out, and that was fun. I got a couple of guys in, and I was just like, let's do this. That was what I liked, and somewhere in between there, I did another live one out of Tattooed Moms for someone else. Like, someone else kind of put together a day of podcasts. It was my friend Kevin with the Everything is Awesome podcast. He put together kind of a day. That one I didn't like the way that went for me. I don't think I was that engaged. I think my guest was a little new to being interviewed too, so they didn't know what to expect, and I think that there was just a lot going on that it just didn't make a great thing. So that was the one where I decided I'm never doing this again. Did one more for the show with Drew and Bruno this year, and then in my head been like, I'm done until the next time someone makes me an offer that I can't refuse, and I go into it again. But they're fun, but it's a whole different ballgame. It really is. Like, it's like half being a stand-up comedian, half you have to engage live.
And you have to entertain the crowd, right? Because they're watching.
Because this is just you and me right now, and if you want to go back and edit it, take out the take out the stuff, maybe take out a boring aside that we go through. And
I will not.
I know your MO, and I know you won't. But you could do that.
Right.
You can't do that live.
Right.
It's just got to be hitting. And to me, my biggest worry when I'm live is this interesting? Is this interesting enough for you to sit and watch two people talk? And so my questioning line's usually a little different. I'm a little quicker on the moving from topic to topic. I might not let things sort of splay out like I do in the studio, because I know I don't have the luxury of editing.
Right.
I mean, even afterwards, when I go to make the show to put out, I'll clip up a little here and there just to clean it up. But live, I'm just like, when I'm live, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to do later for the show. I'm thinking like, for the people who are in this room right now, what can I do to make sure that they get as much enjoyment out of this as I want them to?
So, what have you ever thought about doing something that would doing something similar, but to where you had more control over it, to where you would be able to be like, and I don't know what that control is, but maybe saying that like, I'm down to do it if I have these guests because I know that this interview will be fucking entertaining.
Yeah, no, and I think whenever I was working at a bridge set, I felt like myself and Steve and the guys there, we had control. Like, there was nothing that I couldn't go. There's nothing I couldn't go to them with and be like, what if we try this? There was nothing Steve was going to say no. Not off the cuff. He might be like, I don't know, and I'd have to, convince him one way or the other that one thing was a way to go or not. But he and I have been friends for long enough too that we're just into doing fun shit. And so I feel like those situations I did have a lot of control over how I wanted to do it. Anyone who came to those live shows or even heard those live shows later, the ones out of Bridge Set, that's pretty much how I would want to do it.
Does it ever drive you nuts? Like right now, your Facebook page, I think it's like at 189 friends. You're like, motherfucker, one of you just go like the goddamn shit so that I have my 190.
I get my 190. Can 11 of you come and like the things? I get my 200.
Right.
I try not to look at that. And Facebook seems to be less of a way to get word out than it used to be.
I think so.
I think it's harder for me to appear on feeds because I'm a page, and because I'm a page, Facebook wants me to give them money every time I want to get stuff out. And even the handful of times that I've, boosted a post with $5 or $10 or something like that, I haven't really seen... I couldn't put a finger on being like, yes, that increased blah, and I can point to it right here. I have never, either I suck at being able to figure that out, or it's not helpful, or a combination of the two. When I've had a particular guest that I thought was, might net, more listeners than normal, when I have, people who are on labels or something like that, or, people who are part of bands that are a little higher profile, I'll throw $10 down behind that to kind of push what I think is already going to be a well-received show and give it a little extra push right there. And maybe it has helped. I don't know. Maybe I just don't know how to see the results on that.
Yeah.
I try not to chase the numbers. I try not to do that.
I'm at that point too. I think I'm starting to figure like
you drive yourself crazy.
I'm like and just this I'm more concerned about putting out content than I am about like the number. You know what I mean? Like to me, that's
I want
more
the people
important.
who are on the show to have I want them to have a real positive experience from it too. So if they can have a real positive experience from it, and I'm having a positive experience from it, then the people who come to find it are going to hopefully going to have a positive experience from it. I used to always, when I did get asked this question, because I've been on a few panels over the last couple of years about, podcasting or internet broadcasting or what is the future, or, like I have the damn answers. But look, I'm doing a show out of my basement. What do I know? But I always say, create a really good body of work. And if you create a really good body of work, when people come to it in 1 or 2 or 5 at a time, which is how it's going to go at the beginning, and very likely into the middle as well, have something worth the time of the people who come to find you. Because if they do come and find you, there are so many things out there for people to find. And you know how easy it is to just be like, no, just swipe up, what have you. Yep. So have something worthy of someone's time.
Absolutely. So I know that you've been in bands. You've been doing this podcast a long time. You have a lot of connections. You've been through and through. Originally from New York, out here in Philly. Yeah. Been here in Philly for a long time. So one of the greatest things that I like to ask my guests are, do you have any crazy ass Philly stories?
My entire time here is just one crazy ass Philly story. Oh gosh, this is such a this city. Like, I vibed with this city immediately. This is where I was born here. Like, I was born in the area in 1980, because this happened to be where my parents lived. This is where my father got his first job out of college, and he was with my mom, and they were married, and they moved out to here, and he worked. the companies he worked for in the late 70s and early 80s are probably long gone. But they lived in Coatesville and King of Prussia and Norristown and places like that. So this just happened to be where I was born. We have no ties here. Like, there's no family or anything. But I came back here when the frontman, the guy who I've been playing music with since I was a teenager, he moved here in 02 or 03. And I came out to visit from Western New York, which is where I'm from originally, and where I was living just after school, just, working bar jobs and drinking too much. I came down here and I must have visited him like 4 times over the course of a year. And after like that 4th time, I was just like, I just move here. Like, why do I not move here? It was about 5-6 hours from where I was living. So I was like, it was actually a closer major city than New York, and less expensive, and just an easier city to wrap your head around. So I moved here in 03 or 04. 04, I guess, would be the official when I moved here. And it clicked. The city just clicked with me. Like, I got it. Some people, where they go, like, I know people who, like, when they were 18 or 19, went to college for the first time in New York City. New York City just clicked for them, and they could vibe. They could hang. When I got to Philly, I was like, yeah, I get this place. Like, I do. It's that really, to me, a perfect combination of, kind of a metropolitan high life. Like, there's great shit here, high-end shit, great art, great music, great food, great, beautiful buildings and stuff everywhere. But, like, we're a rough and tumble working class city too, and we do not suffer bullshit. And I do not suffer bullshit. So,
do you have a story that goes along with that?
With not suffering bullshit?
Any crazy ass Philly story that you can think of that's ever happened to you since you've fallen in love with this place so much?
Oh gosh. I'm just trying to rack my brain. I can just there's tiny interactions that I have with people sometimes, like, or just positive and negative. Like, I love that in this city that, like, the middle finger signals the end of a conversation or the end of an interaction. The number of times I have walked away from situations in this city with just my finger up over my shoulder, just being like, "Fuck this," and like. Some people, like, and then someone yelling, "Fuck you," and I'm like, "Fuck you," and I'm just like, "All right, we're done now," though. Like, but I love that. I love that this city is proud of itself. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but there's love, and that love can manifest itself in a whole lot of strange and at times unpleasant ways. Gosh, like, the number of altercations I get into on my bicycle with other motorists that are like 2 seconds long.
Oh, you're a cyclist?
Yeah.
I fucking hate you.
Yep,
Go ahead.
Well, city boy, man. City boy. I can hold my own. My whole thing is that if I'm dipping around you, it's because, number one, I think I can make it. And number two, I'm just trying to get out of the way, man. I'm just trying to get out of the way. I'm trying to get there. You're trying to get there. We're all trying to get there. That's the thing I most likely yell on a bike. It's like, dude, we're all just trying to get there, man. Fuck you very much. Bye. Here's a good one. All right. This doesn't necessarily paint me in the best light, but whatever. That's a very Philly story, one that doesn't paint you in the best light. I was riding, this was years ago. I was riding westbound on Lombard in the 20s, going across the South Street Bridge. I was going to West Philly for whatever reason. And I was on my bike, and some guy was driving aggressively behind me. I gave him the finger. That made him much more angry, which meant he probably wasn't from Philly. And he decided to take it personally. He was really getting up on me, like some real dangerous shit, where you're just like, okay, we're starting to cross a line here where, like, you could really hurt me. We get to a light. He opens his window, starts screaming at me. I whip my helmet off. I start screaming at him. He goes to get out of the car, like, you're like, oh, and like, he's a tough guy. And I'm not making the situation any better. I'm talking shit. He's talking shit. I think I probably taunted him to get out of the car. He gets out of the car, and I think to myself, oh, fuck, like, this is escalated now. Like, you and your big fucking mouth, your whole life, this is where you are. He gets out, starts yelling at me. And I just decide, I'm just gonna go off. I'm just gonna see if I can just scare this guy back into his car because I'm scared too. I'm like, I just want to scare this guy back into his car and we'll all leave. So I definitely threatened to take my bike apart and feed it to him. Like, I believe that's what I said to him. I said, I will take this bike apart and fucking feed it to you. And that's a weird thing to say. And I'm sure from him, he was just like, oh, this kid's fucking nuts. And in my mind being like, please don't call my bluff. Please don't call my bluff. He got in the car. He left after yelling at me, and I yelled at him. But I was just like, but that was a very Philly. That's a very Philly type of.
Sounds like a common thing that I see, like on Second and Allegheny all the time.
And really, both of us should have left it alone. I should have
you.
left it alone. He should have left it alone. But we didn't leave it alone.
Awesome, Mr. Dan Drago. Did I say it again? Fucked it. All right.
You got it, man.
Anything else you want to add?
Oh, God, I don't know. I mean, go to the podcast site, 25o'clockpod.com. I put out episodes every couple weeks. I say every couple weeks like it sounds random. Every 2 weeks, I put an episode out.
Right on.
That was my production schedule that I decided kind of from the beginning. For a period, I was doing it, for a very short period, I was doing it every week. That seemed to be a little more than I was able to keep up with. So I went back to again, talking about being in charge of your own show. Like, I decided I wanted to go to 1 week, and I did. And then I decided I didn't want to go to 1 week, and so I went back.
And we don't know you shit.
No, man. I took a break. Like, shortly around when I talked to you, actually, I was in the midst of my break, just kind of recharging the stocks and just kind of taking some time. I was traveling a lot that month, too, so it made sense to just take a break. It would have been a hell of a thing to try and keep it going. But I'm back every couple of weeks. I put an episode out, and you can find me on all the places. Like, if you subscribe to podcasts anywhere, Stitcher or Podcast Republic, or all it seems like every week there's another one.
Right. There is.
Yeah, you guys, my hosting site populates all those things for me. So I'm there, man. I'm there. I still haven't quite mastered how to use keywords in a way to get people to find me, but
25 o'clock, bitches. Check it out. 25o'clock.com. Mr. Dan Drago, cool dude. Can't wait to get out of the podcast realm with him and have a beer at a bar somewhere.
Yeah.
But totally, man. Thank you so much for your time, inviting me into your home. You're also a crazy motherfucker letting people come in your house like this with all this nice shit coming around.
Well,
You're a crazy motherfucker.
Well,
There's no way. There's no fucking way I would allow people to come in my basement like this.
It's just, it is what it is.
You're a good guy, buddy. Hey, thanks again, man, for your time. Really enjoyed hanging out. Can't wait to talk to you some other time.
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming over.
You bet. Later.